Good evening. I'm Dale McInnes. I'm Chair of the Laurinburg, Scotland County Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. On behalf of our board, it's my pleasure to welcome you all here tonight to this evening's forum. To those of you present with us in the Laurinburg City Hall and to all those that might be watching us through Facebook Live, we're so glad to have you join us. On behalf of the Chamber, I want to thank you for attending as we present this opportunity to learn of the platforms, the ideas, and the strategies our candidates will bring to us in this open forum. As citizens, we all want to show our gratitude to the candidates with us tonight that have invested their time, effort, into making democracy come alive. Their willingness to serve all of us is deeply appreciated, and we thank you all. We want to send out a special thank you to the Mayor, City Council, and all the staff of the City of Laurinburg for hosting this event in this beautiful building. We couldn't be in a better place. A special thank you to Chief Darwin Williams and the Laurinburg Police Department for the security they're providing tonight and every night to the people of Laurinburg. To our partners, the Laurinburg Junior Service League, they're going to be serving as our timekeepers. So pay attention. They're the most important people in the room. So thank you, ladies, for what you're doing. To the representatives of the press, the Fourth Estate with us tonight, Dave Wells from WLNC and J.J. Melton from the Laurinburg Exchange, thank you for your service to the community and for representing this event tonight. Our moderator for this evening is Chris English, and Chris is the Executive Director of Laurinburg, Scotland County Area Chamber of Commerce. He's a native of Scotland County, a proud graduate of Scotland High. And he's doing a wonderful job for us. He's been with us since 2016 and couldn't be prouder to have him in this role and working with us tonight. Before you welcome Chris to the podium, if you'll join with me in a brief prayer as we ask a blessing on tonight's events and all those participating. Please join me. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you put a special blessing on all those willing to serve and currently serving as we take forward our great responsibility to elect those willing to serve. We ask you to share your wisdom with each and every one of them and guide us through this important process. Make sure their travels home tonight are safe, and this event is everything that we expect it to be. In your holy name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Now please give Mr. Chris English a warm welcome as he begins to moderate tonight's events.
Thank you so much, Dr. McInnes. Before I begin, I really want to thank Dr. McInnes again for joining us tonight. He had a pretty big event going on in Richmond County on his campus, and I think that just shows his dedication to Scotland County. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and get things going here. Our first race on the agenda, and everybody here has a program, but is the North Carolina Senate District 25. And the candidates we have is Ms. Helen Probst Mills and Tom McInnes. And if you would, come to the middle of the panel. And if you don't mind, you can stand while you say your presentation. Okay. In the middle, either one of those chairs. Is there and I'm sorry, I do have a name for the young lady representing in So Ms. Tiffany Covington will be representing Senator Tom McInnes. Thank you.
Mr. English, would you like me to begin?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you and good evening and hello to everyone at home. Not really sure where the camera is. Oh, thank you so much. I am Helen Probst Mills and I'm running to be your state senator here in District 25, which is Anson, Moore, Scotland, and Richmond counties. Of course, Scotland's most important, we know that. I am an attorney, a small business owner. I'm a mother. I've been married for 27 years to a wonderful man. I've got 4 children, one who predeceased us. I'm a daughter, and I'm an overcommitted volunteer to the community. I'm a community college trustee. I know the importance of the foundation of public education in one's life. I know the importance of health care. I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I think it's morally reprehensible that in the state of North Carolina we have yet to expand Medicaid. I am also a passionate advocate for the advancement of everyone. Everyone should have their best opportunity to live their best life, whether they choose to pursue a technical degree, whether they choose to pursue a college degree. We have a responsibility under the North Carolina Constitution to provide education to our children. We haven't been living up to that. We need to go back to fully funding our public education. Currently, on average, our teachers make about $9,000 less per year. My sister is a teacher, and trust me, I know she doesn't make enough for the time she puts into it. Many of the teachers here in Scotland County have to work 2 or 3 extra jobs in order to be able to pay their bills. A state's budget is a reflection of its priorities, and I would argue at the moment we need to realign our priorities and make sure that we are not only just funding our education, but that we're fully funding the needs for counties like Scotland that need investment in jobs and economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Covington?
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Covington, and I bring you greetings and the following statement from Senator Tom McInnes. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been honored to represent you in the North Carolina State Senate. I have worked hard to make sure that Scotland County has a voice in Raleigh, as evidenced by securing an $8 million appropriation to extend the runway of the Laurinburg-Maxton Airport. This expansion will entice new business and industry to locate to this area while creating paying jobs. As across the state, we have reduced taxes and increased the standard reduction. We have raised teacher and state employees' pay and strengthened our pension systems for retirees. The Department of Transportation has had its problems, but I pledge to continue working with the state and federal government to address the overgrown ditches and floodings challenges here in Scotland County. I'm especially proud to have been the primary sponsor of a bill designed to assist new teachers in getting their teacher licenses without unnecessary regulations. This legislation will help keep talented new teachers in the classroom. I'm also proud to have helped secure funds for the expansion of the Scotland County campus of Richmond Community College so that continued education is more accessible for all the citizens here, including 9th and 10th graders who can now take dual classes. COVID-19 has taken a great toll on every citizen, and we are diligently working to address critical needs throughout the state, including the important need for high-speed internet in rural areas. I will continue to work to address the COVID crisis. As always, I am here to address the needs of my constituents, and I welcome your call for any challenges you may have with the state government. Tonight, I respectfully ask for your prayers and your vote on November the 3rd so that I can go back to Raleigh and finish the work that I have started for Scotland County and for the rest of District 25. Thank you, and may God bless you, your family, your county, state, and nation. Sincerely, Tom McInnes.
Thank you, Ms. Covington. With my jitters, I failed to mention the rules for tonight's event. So we're gonna back up a minute and go over those. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to present their platform, which you ladies did. And the Junior Service League members are here to flag the candidates to give them a warning when they are close to the end of their time. They will hold up a yield sign when there are 30 seconds left. And when the time is up, they'll have a stop sign. And if you go beyond that, it's my duty to cut you off. The media is here to ask questions, and the media can ask questions to all the candidates or just one candidate. And so if it's asked to just one candidate and the other candidate would like to have time to answer, they have that opportunity. So there is, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question, and there's also a rebuttal period too. Due to the nature of this event, the community was not allowed to send, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Due to the virtual nature of this event, the community was not allowed to send in questions. They were allowed to send in questions. However, we didn't get any. And weird. So the same rules would apply, but obviously we don't have any questions from the community. Again, no personal attacks on any candidates will be tolerated. Now, since Senator McInnes just has somebody here speaking on his behalf, you will not be able to answer any questions. Only Ms. Mills will be able to. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the media for questions.
Our first question for you is, should the state approve a measure to legalize the use of marijuana, and why not?
Thank you for that question. I think that the state should follow the recommendation of science and the medical community, and if there are reasonable uses that can help individuals with pain tolerance, then I would be in favor of looking into that.
How do you envision a path forward that would allow the state to pass a new budget? You had spoke of, financing Medicaid, and so forth. How do you envision this moving forward with the state, regardless of the governor's race outcome?
We live in a great country. And I think that one of the things that makes it so great, and by the way, everyone should run for office. It's a phenomenal experience. I highly recommend it to you. It really is. And I'm happy to talk to you at length about it because it really is enlightening to see how much individuals actually really have faith in our system. And one of the aspects of our system that works or should work well is compromise. Everybody has different ideas. Both parties have different ideas. Both parties believe in different priorities at times. But unfortunately, because our state is existing under a very gerrymandered situation where all of our legislative districts, the fair number of individuals don't have to be responsive to their citizens, you don't get that. You don't get that compromise. So the governor's budget proposal had a whole set of priorities in terms of including an infrastructure bond that would have provided, I believe, 120,000 jobs across the state. The Republicans' proposal was a pay-as-you-go plan for bonds. It wasn't a bond referendum. But there was no opportunity to really sit down and figure out the middle ground on this. And as a result, the state of North Carolina currently is operating without a budget, which I think, if you look at the requirements of our legislature, one of their main responsibilities is to pass a budget. So I think that what we need to do as a state is get to a point where we decide that we will work together again on what's important actually for the citizens. And I would argue currently what's important for the citizens in Scotland County is that there are about 11% of the population here in Scotland County doesn't have any access to health care. That's bad. That's really bad in a pandemic. I would argue that expanding Medicaid would bring in about 120 jobs to Scotland County. It would cover many, many people who desperately need health care in the middle of a pandemic, but it would also bring much needed revenue into Scotland County and across the entire state. If we're concerned about ensuring that the state of North Carolina has enough revenue, it's projected, sorry, my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills.
Has the governor's plan during the coronavirus been a good one for the state? And again, why or why not?
I believe that the governor's plan has been a good one, and I think we can see that as evidenced by the fact that we have some of the lower rates of transmission than states around us. Let's take a moment, though, and think about how difficult this really is. One of the things that we talk about is having to be socially distant from each other. And I would argue that that nomenclature, those words, have made this even harder than it needed to be. What we really need to be is actually 6 feet away from each other. But we must be in fellowship with each other. We must be in community with each other, and we must be supporting each other. This is the hardest thing that has happened in our lifetimes. And my mother's 90, and it's the hardest thing that's happened in her lifetime, and she's been through a lot. I think the governor has done a great job balancing keeping us safe, ensuring that the least number of people's lives are lost, and every single life is precious, and it's horrific that we've lost as many as we have, against the fact that we still need to be moving forward. People need to be able to pay bills. Children need to be able to learn. We've become very creative. All of a sudden, we're able to do much more over Zoom and the internet than we did previously. Telehealth is booming. School online sort of works, some better than others. And we've become aware of the incredible need to ensure that we actually do expand broadband across the entire state. The governor has a plan that by June of 2021, we will have achieved such. It is possible to achieve these things on behalf of our citizens. We can make these things that impact all of our lives a priority if we choose to. I think the hard part is what happens with small business. Senator Kirk Deviere, a Democrat from Cumberland County, had a great bill where you would have had a grant program for restaurants. In Moore County, we have a great booming restaurant industry, which is wonderful, but so many of them are going to suffer as a result of the lack of people being able to dine inside and many more people having to dine outside. But that bill never hit the floor in the Senate because, again, we don't need to compromise. We don't need to listen to the Democrats. They're not in control.
Thank you.
You touched on broadband access, and one of the more serious issues is the lack of high-speed internet accessibility for all. What would your plan do to improve that in working with the State House?
I will be the first to admit I am not technologically adept at times. My children laugh at me all the time. There are a couple different ways we can go about it. We can use satellite technology in order to reach that last mile that we've not been able to reach because it's expensive to lay cable. We can lay cable and fiber where we need to ensure that people have access to broadband. And we have to acknowledge that it really is the final utility that needs to be provided to our citizens. So it needs to be financed in a public-private partnership. We're very good at that in North Carolina. We have a lot of those. And we need to decide that we are going to put the energy and the talent that we have behind it. We have great people who can easily take on these jobs, dig the trenches we need, lay the cable. We also need to ensure that we will have literacy courses for those who are not as computer literate as others. I'll take one, might be good. And we also need to make sure that we're providing for individuals who may not be able to afford it, especially when we're looking at children and senior citizens, the opportunity to have devices in their home that they'll be able to use. That's very important. Many of you know my husband is the executive director of the Literacy Council in Moore County. So he and I both know, and I hear a lot about, the concerns about low literacy in our adult population. We know that is difficult for individuals who are looking for jobs. So we just need to decide it's a priority. And once again, I would argue our budget reflects our priorities. We do have the ability to put that in there, but we have not done to date. Medicaid expansion, just so you know, in case you want a fact or figure, would bring about another $500 million, again, $500 million in revenue, just revenue alone, into the state coffers. At this time of COVID-19, when our sales are down and our sales tax revenue is down, that's a much needed boost to our state budget. We just need to decide it's a priority.
That all the questions from the media? Okay. Ms. Mills, Ms. Covington, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, while they're stepping down, I would like to mention that I spoke to Ms. Dale Parker today with Scotland County Board of Elections, and she just wanted me to remind everybody that early voting begins October 15th, and the polls at the Scotland County Annex building will be open. They will be following all safety guidelines. Wait 6 feet, wash your hands, wear a face mask. All right, we're going to call the North Carolina House of Representatives race, District 48. and that's Representative Garland Pierce and the challenger, Mr. Johnny Bowles. If you wouldn't mind coming to the middle of the panel, please. Representative Pierce, your name comes first on the ballot, so you have 2 minutes to state your platform.
Good evening rather, to Scotland County, and I want to thank the Chamber for giving me the opportunity to reintroduce myself to this community. I've been a part of this community for 30 years in dual roles. I'm one Sunday short of 30 years at Bright Hopewell Missionary Baptist Church and 16 years as a legislator. And I think during that time, I did all that I could, humanly possible, to make this community know that I'm very excited to be in Scotland County. I've worked with the police department, sheriff department, and all the departments. Anything that they needed in Raleigh, I was always there to assist them. I pray that I provide the type of leadership that our citizens are pleased with here in Scotland County as we continue to grow. As so many others have said, I know that I have had a positive impact on the lives of so many citizens here in Scotland County, and I'm grateful for the opportunity you have given me to serve this county, and I hope that I have not embarrassed you in Raleigh. I've always had Scotland County first and foremost in my mind on any decision that I made. There's 3 things that I work with when I vote on any bill: my conscience, my constituents, and my caucus. So I hope I did that. Nobody agrees on everything in Raleigh. Nobody agrees on anything in any agency that you serve in. So I've been practiced bipartisanship where it was possible, and most of the time I've agreed with the other party at least 90% of the time. There's always going to be 10% because Mrs. Pierce and I don't agree on everything. Hello. But I hope I did that, and I am asked once again for your vote of confidence to give me the opportunity to continue to serve this community.
Thank you, Reverend Pierce. Mr. Johnny Bowles, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name's Johnny Bowles. I'm the Republican candidate for the North Carolina House of Representatives, District 48. It's been redrawn, so this year District 48 is all of Scotland and all of Hope County. I'm a native of Hope County, and I have lived there all my life except for 14 years right across the line in Cumberland County. I'd like to thank the Chamber for putting on this event tonight. That's really good. I'm a retired row crop farmer, and I did that for about 40 years. I retired, and I have served as a first responder for over 47 years, and I'm still active doing that. My plan is to support our military, active and retired. I want to support our law enforcement 100%. I stand for lower taxes. I want to encourage business growth in Scotland County. I support our teachers, and note the teachers were given a raise 5 of the last 5 years voted by the Republicans. And when I get in, I hope we can do it another year. I've spent my whole life in North Carolina and want to see our state prosper. I'm running for the State House because I have a clear vision for our future. And I really think that District 48 has a lot of opportunities. I have the experience to get the job done. I'm ready to stand in the gap, make Hope and Scotland counties a better place to live and be. And I humbly ask for your support this November. My name is Johnny Bowles. I'm candidate for North Carolina House.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. We have questions from the media.
My questions for the 2 of you are the same as the previous 2 candidates. Should the state approve a measure to legalize the use of marijuana? And again, why or why not?
I'll start off. Thank you, Ms. Bell. Like I said, I've had many conversations with many of the legislators, Kelly Alexander, particularly out of Mecklenburg County, who was one of the leading bill drafters or writers on that proposed legislation. being a veteran and going to the VA hospital quite a bit, I know that there are some veterans who have different illnesses that some form of marijuana would help them with those issues. And just thinking about that, I thought about that question. When we look at legalizing, it would take a lot out of our jails, our court systems, if we were able to do that in a way that the state could control it. It's got to be controlled just like alcohol and anything else. If it can't be controlled, I'm willing to give that opportunity, but we would be very sure that it's controlled by some agency that can really keep their hands wrapped around it. So as it comes to medical reasons, I would definitely support it that way, but if we can control it, I would be in support of that, if we can control it.
We have hemp in North Carolina, and they get CBD oil out of it. So marijuana, it's not the TCH part that they're looking at that's that's legalized now, the hemp. But medical marijuana could be in our future. The popularity of it has really grown in recent years. I'm open-minded about it. I'd like to know more scientifically about the long-term effects of it. I think that there's a lot of 1960s research was done, but I think some scientific research needs to be done on it.
Thank you. Next question.
There are so many needs throughout the state of North Carolina, not just here in Scotland County and Hope County, but throughout the state. And some of these needs we've discussed earlier with our state senator races. How do we pay for these? How do we pay for everything we need, especially now that COVID-19 has drained so many coffers in the state?
I think that we are seeing this afternoon as we debate and talk that the federal government is looking at a back and forth on a stimulus that would help the community once again with the $1,200. I think the president at this time, and along with the Senate and the Congress, are talking about that. But it's very difficult to state all we're taxing, when you talk about taxing, any income that comes from this state is have to come from taxes or other monies. So we don't want to talk about tax and spend on folks. We don't want to do it that way. But what we want to do is to do what we can to make sure that we take advantage of those opportunities that Washington, D.C. gives us. We need to cut where we can cut. We need to invest in small businesses to help get businesses back in place that they can hire folks going forward. But I think we've got to teach literacy to a lot of our citizens to learn how to save, to learn how to take advantage of the funds that they have. I think that's one thing I'll say. Sometimes people just spend without any idea that it's going to rain another day. So I think that's one thing, and I think that's something the schools will teach is that economic literacy to help young people coming forward to learn how to save, to learn how to invest in insurance products, to learn how to have saving accounts. And I think that's something that the schools and all of us should teach to our young people going forward. But we're just in a difficult place right now, and we just got to take advantage of those resources that the federal government will give us in order to move forward, because we have no idea how long this is going to last. But I think we've got to really look to Washington, D.C. for help at this present time, as they've advocated today that they just might do. So we'll see.
Do you mind repeating the question?
There are many needs throughout the state of North Carolina, not just Scotland or Hope County. And there have been a lot of great programs spoken of even here tonight. And with so many needs, how do we pay for these programs, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic when a lot of the coffers have been drained?
Yes, sir. North Carolina has been very blessed. There was a rainy day fund. So North Carolina is better off than a lot of our states. We had, I think, $2 billion in the rainy day fund, so we had something to fall back on. But the future of North Carolina is the children need to have this great education and get the quality jobs, the higher paying jobs. We need to really center in on education, and our government has done things to help us, but there's a limit to what the government can do. I mean, we don't want a socialist society where the government just tells us everything. We want to be able to have that privilege to do what we want to do on our own. I think that whenever the legislature gets back in the session, they need to look at ways to save some ways and other ways to help. They need to redirect some of the money to some of the infrastructures that the state needs. We got a lot of crumbling bridges that are just dangerous. We got a lot of highways that are just potholes to death, and whenever this winter comes, it's going to make them even worse whenever rain freezes in them. But there are so many issues. We just got to get our priorities where they need to be because of this virus. This virus, and of course, since it started, a lot of people have in this science industry have said, yeah, we're gonna get rid of this. The vaccine is only going to be 60% effective. So if it's only 60% effective, we're going to be wearing masks and distancing for years to come. And I shudder at that, but that's what I was told. So, yeah, we got to be very careful about how we spend money.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Next question.
So again, has the governor's plan during the coronavirus been good for the state? Why or why not?
I thought about that question, 'cause I know that those are some questions we still get the answer for your publication. First of all, I asked myself, if I was in that position, what would I do? The governor is a human being trying to balance businesses, trying to balance health. And I think we have seen, ladies and gentlemen, that this virus has no particular person we know. When our very own president catches the virus, we know that it's a real issue. And I think he has everybody around him with all types of medical experience that he should not have got it. I just leave that part alone. But I think the governor had to just make decisions based on science. He had a wonderful health director that I have a lot of confidence in to encourage the governor to make the decisions that he made. And we've got to stand. He's the person in charge. He's the one where the buck stops in North Carolina. We should follow his guidance, his directions. Like I said, he had to make decisions. When you're in charge, somebody has to make decisions. There's no doubt about that. We have lost so many citizens here in North Carolina due to the virus. Even our county here in Scotland, in Hope, from my understanding, I was in Hope today, that the numbers have peaked up. So, somebody has to make the decision. I stand behind the governor 100% on the decision that he had to make. Like I said, he's human. He had to make those decisions. He's the person that a majority of North Carolina voted for to be the governor. So we have to stand with the governor, stand behind him in whatever decision he made. And I think as time go forward, time will tell and history will tell if he made the right decision.
There is no playbook, thank goodness, for a virus situation like we have had. It's serious. For a long time, I heard about virus and people getting sick and people dying. I didn't know anybody that ever had it. I didn't know anybody died. And all of a sudden in Rayford, one of my good friends caught COVID, went to the hospital, stayed over 60 days, and died from complications of it. He died from pneumonia, but the COVID's what gave him the pneumonia. So it is a very serious thing for all of us. It can strike your neighbor, your husband, your wife, your daughter. It's more dangerous for our older generation. I think the 70 is what a lot of them say. It's very dangerous, and we need to have a governor that would play more emphasis on our 70-year-old population. Whenever the governor started all this, and like I say, there was no playbook, I think he went overboard closing down businesses. You could go into Walmart and buy clothes, shoes, groceries, anything you wanted, pharmacy stuff. But yet, some of the stores down the street that sold the same thing, they shut them down. That just didn't seem fair to me. And then you had Home Depot. If you needed to go into Home Depot or Lowe's like you have here in Laurinburg, everybody's down at Lowe's buying stuff. Lowe's has had some good stock returns during this. But it's very serious, and I think that the public needs to be considered a little more. I think the governor was in the shades a little bit on some of the things he did. There was some things I think he should have consulted the legislature more on that he didn't consult on.
Let's come back to Scotland and Hope County specifically. If you were preparing a campaign speech that was going to say the 3 most important needs for Scotland and Hope County, what would those 3 important needs be on your outline, the 3 key points in your speech that you would make on the needs for Scotland and Hope County?
First, we well know education is number 1 on my to-do list. We've got to really get education, fully funding education is what we call it in Raleigh. Fully funding it, give the education system all the resources they need, teachers, all those who work in the system, education system, they should be compensated for all that they do. So my number 1 priority would be education, because as Mr. Bowles said, if we have an educated workforce, then that takes me into number 2. Economic development. If you have a trained workforce, as our community college trains so many people in Scotland and Richmond and this whole corridor, if they're educated, number 1. Number 2, that helps with economic development. When companies are looking for a place to invest, to bring their businesses, they want to make sure that you have an educated workforce who's able to operate machinery. Technology is different now. It's not, you just can't go there and grab something and start working. You've got to know how to operate. You've got to know how to read blueprints. You've got to know how to do so many things. So I would start with education. Number 2, economic development going in it. And I think one issue that I see is the lack of, affordable housing. Hope in Scotland are somewhat different in some ways, because there's so many housetops in Hope County due to the military. When you first come across the border, that whole area has a lot of housetops. They just build them, every day they build them. But Scotland is a little bit different. I talked to some of the local realtors. There's really nothing too much on the market to really buy now. That's an amazing fact. So I think how education, economic development, and housing should be, those are the 3 priorities that I look at preparing people for the future. And then they can do what they need to do to take care of their families and loved ones if they're properly educated. Thank you.
There is a lot of things that Hoke and Scotland need. I mean, it's hard to put just a pencil on 3 ideas, 3 major ideas. Some of my rural farmers, and since I have a farming background, that's kind of close to me, but they're out on the country and they need broadband real bad. Some of the equipment they're running, they need broadband to improve on their equipment because everything's turning to technology. We really need broadband out in our neighborhoods in the rural areas. Business. If you encourage business, if you make business grow, your society is going to profit from it. So we need to make our businesses as profitable and as secure as we can make them. Education. Don't forget, we don't just have colleges and universities, we also got trade schools. So we can teach people trades. We need plumbers and we need electricians and car mechanics and painters, and we need a lot of things other than somebody that just goes to the university. We need the trade school people too. So I want to encourage the trade schools. I want to put emphasis on trade schools. The population for Hoke and Scotland offers so much more than Hoke County. Y'all have 36,000 people approximately. Hoke County has 56,000 approximately. 20,000 more people are under rooftops in Hoke County than in Scotland. But you guys in Scotland, y'all got a lot of stuff we just don't have. And so y'all have done a lot of right things. Our military plays a big emphasis on Hoke County. we've got some developers that take advantage of the military moving into Hope County, so they have built the homes. And so we have a good industry in Hope County for home building. And there's a lot of things probably that need to be looked at about that for the curbing, the guttering, and run off with the rain.
Stop me.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Thank you. Okay, we have no more questions from the media. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for allowing us to be here.
As they leave the panel, I'd like to welcome candidates for Scotland County Commissioner at Large, Bo Frizzell and Whit Gibson. Bo could not join us tonight, and Chuck Whitmore will be representing Bo Frizzell. Come on. What in the world? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Whitmore, Bo Frizzell is listed first on the ballot, so you have the opportunity to go first.
You'll
2
have to-
minutes.
Thank you. You'll have to forgive me, as this is a written statement that I will read and prepared by Bo. So my name is Chuck Whitmore. I'm here to represent Bo Frizzell for County Commissioner. Unfortunately, Bo was unable to attend due to company business. I am here to tell you a little bit about Bo. He's a businessman who owns multiple companies and a family man. He's an active member of his community. He grew up in Troy, North Carolina, where he attended Troy High School and went to multiple community colleges to further his education, such as Richmond, Troy, Salisbury, and Sanford Community College. He also attended, additional education through the Caterpillar and Ford Company, which he was employed by. He's a husband, a father of 4, and a grandfather of 11. He owns and runs Edge Grading and Hauling and Bo Frizzell Trucking, where he has over 50 employees. Bo is remarkably familiar with budgeting and does that on a daily basis, and he is very qualified to do the job of a county commissioner. He would rather lead by example than run things from behind closed doors. That is Bo. He's a real leader. And a real leader is the tip of the sword. He is invested in his community and is a member of the Optimist Club. After the devastation of Hurricane Harvey, he and the Scotland County Sheriff's Department took 7 tractor-trailer loads of donated goods to Texas. Additionally, during Hurricane Matthew in 2018, he selflessly opened a shelter and his home to friends and neighbors. He is an example to this community and will be an asset as a county commissioner. We need a leader who is not going to be afraid to talk to and listen to the people of this county, someone who's going to be open and upfront. This town would be very,
You're fine.
this town would be very, very, very well to have him as a county commissioner.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. Mr. Gibson.
Good evening. I'm Whit Gibson. I'm a candidate for a seat on the Board of County Commissioners. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the Junior Service League for arranging this forum, and thank all of you who have joined us electronically. I was raised in Scotland County, graduated from Laurinburg High School, left for 15 years to attend the University of North Carolina and work in Greensboro and Richmond County as a parole supervisor and superintendent of Cameron Morrison Youth Center. In 1981, I returned to Laurinburg, was appointed as the Clerk of Superior Court, where I served until retirement in 2007. From 2007 until 2019, I worked for First Capital Bank, retiring again in 2019 as the regional executive of the bank. In 2012, I was elected to the Board of County Commissioners with the goal of reducing the tax rate, improving the relationship between government agencies, and working to enhance economic development in Scotland County. And to those, I would like to make 3 points. Since I've been a commissioner, there have been 12 new or expanded industrial announcements have been made, adding 690 new jobs, $297 million to of capital investments in Scotland County. Since in the last 10 years, Scotland County has added at least one new or expanded industry, and that is one of only 2 or 3 counties in southeastern North Carolina that can say that. The Scotland County Board of Commissioners have reduced the ad valorem tax rate in 3 of the last 6 years. Since 2015, when the Scotland County Board of Education and the county commissioners needed a mediated settlement to decide on funding for the Scotland County schools, the 2 boards formed a liaison committee consisting of 3 members from each of those boards. That committee has met regularly and negotiated the funding amounts that were recommended to and approved by their boards since 2015. This has resulted in a reduced amount of funding agreed to by the boards and better communication and cooperation between them. This has been a successful effort contributed to by several members on both boards, and I'm humbled to have been a member of that liaison committee since it began. Thank you for giving me the time to be here tonight. I appreciate your vote on November the 3rd.
Thank you. Questions from JJ?
Okay, our first question is, in the matter of the lost grants that created a $575,000 deficit to the county, do you feel this issue has been handled properly as far as the transparency of the board during and after the process, as well as solving the issue of lost funds and determining who is at fault?
I apologize for reading my response, but I anticipated that I was going to get this question, and I wanted to be clear as best I could. In regard to the Edwards Wood Project grant for $575,000 that had occupied so much of the news in the last several months, I believe the county commissioners have done a very poor job in answering questions and being open about what has occurred and what was going on, and for that, I personally apologize. Unfortunately, the process of getting grant approval for work to be done and qualified for repayment took longer than anticipated, and work was begun before documents had been signed by all parties. Therefore, invoices were not eligible for payment under the grant. There was no intentional efforts to deceive, nor any personal gain obtained in the effort for bringing an additional 96 jobs into our county and $38 million in capital expenditures, which added to our tax base. I agree with my opponent that commissioners were too hesitant to defend our economic developer, Mark Ward, in this matter. Mark has done a really good job for us the past 4 years in a difficult position where, unfortunately, experience is the best teacher. In fact, since Mr. Ward became our economic developer in May of 2016, he's announced 6 new or expanded industry, 319 new jobs, and created $180 million in capital investment. Presently, Scotland County has spent $575,000 that has not been reimbursed. We will receive that reimbursement in either a grant or a loan from the Department of Commerce. If it is a loan, the first payment is due July the 1st of 2021. I firmly believe that it will be in the form of a loan, and the loan will be forgiven by the Department of Commerce before the first payment is due. These conversations have taken place between the Department of Commerce and Scotland County since last March, and the main reason commissioners were mostly silent on this topic. Our legislative delegation has been extremely active and beneficial in all of these negotiations.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson.
How do you feel about the current Board of Commissioners, of which obviously you're a member, the attempt to create a policy designed to help prevent social media posts by commissioners which could be viewed or deemed as controversial or offensive?
This came about because of a comment that a commissioner had made. We had received a complaint from a local agency that asked us to make response. The commissioners talked about this at their September 8th meeting and decided that it should be referred to an existing committee. The policy committee has been in existence, I don't know how long, probably before I became a commissioner 8 years ago. The 3 commissioners on that board are Carol McCall, John Alford, and myself. We have an existing policy for all county employees in regard to what is acceptable for them to do on Facebook, on social media. I'm not an active member of social media, so this is kind of a foreign subject for me. The purpose of our existing policy was we felt like there were things that were appropriate and inappropriate for county employees to make. We have really changed, we have not altered that policy very much because it has always also pertained to elected officials. I think what is before the policy committee is what, if any, action would be taken toward an elected official if it were determined that what he had done was inappropriate. And I think at our conversation on Monday night was what would constitute that and how can we more clearly define that. And I believe all of the commissioners agreed that we needed something a little more substantial than just the vague understanding that you couldn't say something inappropriate. We also believe, and I do, and this is just me, I don't know, I can't speak for the board, but that the only thing that we do that I think, there are a lot of things we do that we should be held to, but the most important thing is our oath of office. And I think if we do something that is in violation of supporting the Constitution of the United States or the Constitution of North Carolina, that should be, excuse me, I'm sorry for not paying attention, but that should be where the attention and any repercussion should take place.
What, if any, changes do you believe need to happen within the board for it to improve the way it serves the community? So what changes, if there are any?
2 minutes isn't long enough to start with. I think first is we have to get a better system for us to communicate electronically for our current meetings, because I think it is woefully inadequate. I think that the commissioners need to do a better job of speaking with the media. And we need to communicate better through the media in a positive way. I think that's a two-way street, and that I think that we need to feel like what we say is received in a more objective way than sometimes I believe that we feel that to be true. I think too often commissioners are defensive when they are asked questions about anything. And I think that we need to communicate better with our citizenry. I think the example of the training facility, the military training facility, I had more emails and phone calls about that subject than, certainly more than any other subject that has come up in the time I've been commissioner. I enjoyed my conversations with everybody I spoke with. I felt like a lot of times they did not have enough information, and I felt like I was able to give them information. I know they were able to give me information that I did not know. So I think there needs to be a willingness and a less defensiveness and a better two-way communication between the commissioners and the media.
I don't have any more.
No more questions? Okay. We have no more questions from the media, and I think, gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate your service. Okay, next we have on the panel the election for Scotland County Scotland County Commissioner, Stewartsville Township, Miss Angie Kersey and Mr. Clarence McFadder. And Ms. Kersey does not have a representative tonight, so Mr. McFadder, you're on your own.
That happens a lot. Good evening, everyone. For those who do not know, I'm Clarence McFadder. I was born and raised here in Scotland County. Laurinburg in Scotland County is my home. I've had the esteemed privilege and opportunity to serve this county and its citizens for 28 years. 8 years as a city councilman, where I served as mayor pro tem, and 20 years on the Scotland County Board of Commissioners. I was born here. Scotland County was a great place to be raised. I've had opportunity to attend the public schools, graduate from Scotland High School, go Scots again. Attended Fayetteville State University in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Gupton Jones College, of Mortuary Science in Atlanta, Georgia, where I was class vice president. Later, I returned to Scotland County to give back to my community. The community here received me well. I ended up going across the line to marry Richmond Raider. Ended up marrying Lisa Davis McFadder. She's from Hamlet, North Carolina. We have 3 kids together, Chantel, DeMarco, and Cece, the baby. We also have 3 grandchildren. I started my career at Mars Funeral Home here in Laurinburg for 25 years. I got valuable experience. That experience led me to want to run for city office. Then I ended up running for the county commissioner. I had the opportunity to open up McFadder Funeral Home in 2005, and I've enjoyed serving citizens, and I continue to serve citizens with that.
Thank you. We have questions from the media. Laurinburg Exchange.
Again, in the matter of the lost grants that created the $575,000 deficit to the county, do you feel this issue has been handled properly as far as the transparency of the board during and after the process, as well as solving the issue of lost funds and determining who is at fault?
Well, this is why I stand alone from the board. I didn't agree with them, with the decision that were made, but when you're 1/7 of the board, you, like I say, you stand alone. And like I said, not being experienced and to take on that big project, I didn't see things the way they saw it. But like I say, we're a board, and like I say, 1/7, your decision sometimes you may make it out, then you don't get hurt. So just you have to stand alone. And I do that a lot on the board.
Okay, thank you. Dave, do you have a question?
At Monday night's Board of Commissioners meeting, it was discussed the future of I. Ellis Johnson Elementary and South Scotland. South Scotland was deemed not really usable by the county because the first rights of refusal come back to the county. With IEJ, if I remember correctly, the Board of Commissioners gave that first right of refusal back to the Scotland County Board of Education with the stipulation that if there was a third-party involvement, there could be a possible partnership to develop some type of entity there. What do you think should be done with the former IEJ Elementary School?
Well, being raised, I.A. Johnson School is area called Cross Creek. Being raised across the creek, going to middle schools there, I have a sense of, like, that's my home, that's my, I grew up, I went to school there, I played ball there, it's a neighborhood school, and I walk, I know basically all the grounds at I.E. Johnson. And just to see that neighborhood, just see that school be involved to a third party, like a business company from out of state, and that's in the neighborhood I live in and I grew up in. And I don't want to see any kind of business go there. You know, I'd much rather see it torn down just to see abused in the, like I said, in the black neighborhood. Because I think the black neighborhood deserve better. And I hope that the city council had threw out something like doing joint ventures together, and I hope that the county can do that to preserve that school.
What, if any, changes do you believe need to happen within the board for it to improve the way it serves the community?
Well, we're doing a good job. More dialogue together, more dialogue with the media. The COVID has affected everything. So, like board retreats, we can't do things like that together. And get closer to one another. And I hate to say this, but it's true. I'm the youngest member of that board. I'm the only member of the board that's presently working. So everybody on the board is retired. They don't see things the same way I see it. So it's, it can be a little, but I continue to want to serve because that generation gap, from the older generation, the middle generation, and the younger generation, everybody see things differently. And I see it the way that it's in the eyes of people my age see it. And
That's it. Thank you.
listen,
No more questions? Okay.
I thank y'all for having me.
Mr. McFadden, thank you for your time, and thank you for your willingness to serve. The next election is Scotland County Board of Education at large, Ms. Carolyn Banks and Mr. Jimmy Bennett. Come on down. Mrs. Banks, you have the mic first.
Okay, thank you, and thank you so much for the invitation. It is with pleasure that I'm appearing before you tonight. First of all, I am Carolyn Banks. I am married to Artemis Banks. I have 3 sons, retired lieutenant colonel, a retired major, and an engineer. I am a native of Scotland County. I've retired after 27 years in education. My educational background consists of Richmond Community College to Capella University, from an associate degree to a PhD. I am very much invested in education, and I want to see Scotland County youth get the best education possible. My activities include everything from TSA to being a director at Partners in Ministry and After School 21st Century Community Learning Center. I have worked with the Lieutenant Governor, Beth Perdue, and Governor Jim Hunt to recognize National Board Certified Teachers, which I am a National Board Certified Teacher. I believe in research and education because I believe that the more we know about education, the more we can help our youth in Scotland County. I have worked with the board members. We work as a group. We consolidate and we make decisions based on what is best for the students of Scotland County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. Mr. Bennett, you're up.
My name's Jimmy Bennett, and I was born and raised here in Scotland County. Attended school here, graduated, went to University of North Carolina at Pembroke. I work with several groups here in Scotland County. One is I'm the president of the Kiwanis Club, which we do terrific kids for the children, and we give scholarships to high school students. I'm also the president of the Veterans Council, which we do the Memorial Day services and we do the Veterans Day service. And also I'm the commander of Scotland County American Legion Post 50. I spent most of my life here. I'm a seed breeder by trade. I've developed several varieties that's on the market now. Wheat, corn, cotton, tobacco, all the agricultural crops I have done. The reason I wanted to run for the school board, I want to see that every student gets a fair and equal education, and that the school system will utilize their money that they get, spend it wisely, and not waste it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Question from Dave Wells, WLNC Radio.
Recently, at the Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting, board members voted 4-3 for students to return on Plan B, a hybrid learning program where students would attend 2 days a week, for instance, Monday, Tuesday. The next group would come on Thursday, Friday. Wednesday would be a day that all would be remote learning to allow for proper cleaning within the schools. Some things have come to light recently. Do you feel that we are still ready to go back to school? The survey of the parents was 50-50, and the teachers was less than that. The teachers were more in favor of not returning, if I remember the results of the survey. I believe it was 52 to 48% against returning. Do you feel that we are still ready to go back on the 19th?
Well, I'll start, Dave, on that. I've had a lot of parents call me, and they are concerned about starting back. They don't want to start back at this time. They think we need to still do the virtual learning. So I think your percentages may be going up somewhat for what you have talked about.
As I have previously stated, we have to make decisions, and decisions are hard decisions. And sometimes when it comes to a decision like this, it was almost 50-50. We had parents complaining about no babysitter. We had teachers saying that my kids are home and I'm at school. We had many, many concerns, and this was a very thought-out process that we had to go through, and we didn't all agree. But what we decided was what we, as the 4-3 voters, felt like was best for Scotland County at this time, because we're living in a time where there's no right answer. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. My mother is a victim of COVID-19. So see, I know what the danger that we're facing. But I also know that what our kids are going to be losing, because they're all at home. Some of them are running around in the streets with no guidance, no one to take care of them, having lunch to be delivered. So it was a hard decision, and I'm going to tell you, it was not easy. But right now, I'm not going to tell you I'm not rethinking this. I'm not going to tell you I'm not. But we take things day by day. We may have to change. I don't know. But right now, as it stands on the 19th, our students will be returning to school.
Thank you. J.J. Melton, Lombard Exchange.
What are your opinions about virtual learning, and how do you think it will be used in the future?
Well, I think it's at this period we're going through now with the COVID, that's probably our only choice that we have right now. And I think it would be good if we had the internet where the students could get on to do the virtual learning. Right now, I hear that a lot of them can't get on the internet. They can't use it. They talk about hotspots. I know they have problems with the hotspots, and they just can't do it.
First of all, I'm going to say that virtual learning is nothing new to me. In 2013, I earned my PhD, and it was 3.5 years online learning from a distance. I had to go to some on-site sessions, but one thing Scotland County did, we had all of our students, they were equipped with Chromebooks, so we were a step ahead of a lot of counties in this state. So we transitioned smoother than, I guess, any county you can say in the state, because the kids had Chromebooks. They knew how to log on. We knew a lot more than a lot of folks give us credit for. On-site education is the best thing going. I kid you not. But virtual learning is probably the next best thing that we have to offer our kids. And without teachers working together, it can happen. I would rather these kids be back in school without any fear of this virus or anything. But if it takes virtual learning, then that's what we have to get our teachers educated. Scotland County has had a lot of workshops, professional development for our teachers. Yes, they are afraid. I'm a 27 years in the classroom teacher. I would be afraid too. But decisions had to be made.
Thank you, Ms. Banks.
October the 1st saw the retiring of our superintendent for the last 7 years, Dr. Ron Hargrave. And I don't recall at the Cal meeting hearing one person say anything detrimental of Dr. Hargrave. I feel that he worked hard for Scotland County Schools, and I think that was the genuine consensus of each board member. In replacing Dr. Hargrave, it was covered on WLNC News today, and Mr. Singletary shared the information that that search has been narrowed down from 28 applicants from all over the country and Washington, D.C., from all the states in Washington, D.C., down to 7. Of those 7 candidates, what are you looking for in a new superintendent?
Well, I think the first thing, Dave, that they need in the school system for a new superintendent is a person that wants to live here in Scotland County and spend his money here in Scotland County. You don't need a superintendent that wants to come here to be superintendent and live in Roland or Wilmington or somewhere. You want them to live in Scotland County.
Okay, Dr. Hargrave was probably one of the best things that ever happened to Scotland County School Board. He was a visionary. I stated this at the farewell program that they had for him, that when I would go to conferences and attend conferences, he was well known and respected by all. You can tell when a person has been around and they've made an impact on somebody. And Dr. Hargrave was one of those folks that as he met people in sessions, they knew him and knew about his work. So his name was preceded his reputation. So for a person to replace Dr. Hargrave, we need an innovative thinker. We need someone who is going to be a motivator, to motivate our teachers and our staff members. We need someone that the students will love when they run up to them and he greets them as if they were children that he has known, even though he may not know their name. You know, they know him and they know that they can approach him. Working at Partners in Ministry, Dr. Hargrave came out to visit with our students. And he was just like one of the children when we had the games and the things that they participated in. So I think we're going to look for someone who can relate to our children and relate to the citizens in the community of Scotland County. Anybody, he's approachable. You can go up to him at a football game or in a board meeting, and you'll feel comfortable asking questions. So that's the kind of superintendent we need here in Scotland County.
My next question is actually very important to me, as I feel like it is to a lot of parents right now. What can be done to keep our kids from falling behind, to keep them on track, during the virtual learning as well as going back to school?
Well, I think, we talked about virtual learning. We got to have this internet and stuff for them so they can get the learning and get what they need. If they don't have the internet, they're going to fall behind.
One thing we can do is to make sure our educators, our teachers, are up on the latest technology. Things like virtual field trips. You can take a kid on a field trip without even leaving the classroom. They need to know about research-driven projects, real-life experiences, where kids can learn from, let's say, water scarcity. I was involved in a research project with Hofstra University where we had to develop a curriculum to teach kids about how people don't have clean water around the world. So authentic projects that have meaning, that have life, that they can connect to real life experiences. That is one thing we need to do. Teachers who know how to think outside the box and can be creative and help our kids, because it is hard. It is very hard for our kids now. And so many of them are sitting at home not being challenged. At Partners in Ministry, we have kids who log on They won't show their faces. There is I'm sorry to say this, but our kids some of them may be facing issues with depression. So we have to make sure that our kids are taken care of.
Thank you. Any more questions? Nope. That's it. Mrs. Banks, Mr. Bennett, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
As they step down, I would like to say that, yeah, our next superintendent has some very large shoes to fill, no pun intended. I mean that from my heart. I'm going to miss Dr. Hargrave. And one thing people don't seem to realize is that some of the programs that have been established in our school district, we set the bar for a lot of other communities. So I just want to thank everybody that, and as part of our school system for their efforts. Next election is Scotland County School Board of Education, Stewartsville Township. We have Mr. Rick Singletary, Mr. Tony Spalding, Mr. Lee Brigman Jr., and Dr. Gary Malk. Now, for this election, you can vote for 3 candidates. However, 2 of them will not be joining us tonight, but we do have, Dr. Fine, just get comfortable. Mr. Rick Singletary and Tony Spalding. So, Mr. Singletary, you're first on the list. If you don't mind going first, you have 2 minutes.
Good, thank you. Thank you and good evening. First, would like to say a thank you to the Chamber for sponsoring this, and thank you all for attending, and those that are here and those that are viewing us on Facebook. I'm Rick Singletary, a retired educator after 38 years in state public education. I've had the opportunity that I'm a native of Hope County, so I thought that was very interesting back there, Mr. Bowles, in the class of 77. Yep, so you're good. I'm 77. I want to share with you that I'm married. My wife, Valerie Singletary, pastors in a church in Vass, and I was talking to my good friends back there, and they live in Moore County. But my wife is also a retired social worker. She's a nail tech. We have 2 children. And I'm going to try not to choke up on this. My son, Kevin, in March, died. And we believe that it's not documented, but we said he has succumbed to COVID when it was not well known. And it broke our heart. And I have a daughter, Dr. Frida Singletary, that's a pediatrician in Hoke and Cumberland County. And I have 6 grandchildren. That a granddaddy now has to step up and play another role as well. But we call them the A-team, and that's Anthony, Anaya, Aiden, Amari, Autumn, and I had a granddaughter, Addison, that died a day before her birth was to come to earth. I want to share with you 6 quick points that I have that I want to focus on, and one is improving our focus on student growth and achievement, safety, environment, open communication, a focus on 21st century learning, enhance parents' involvement, and continue our growth with partnerships with RCC and all other partners. I have an open mindset for students, parents, and staff, and you should know by now that I'm one that will ask focused questions at our board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Mr. Spalding.
Good evening, and thank you for the invitation. My name is Tony Spalding, and I am a product of Scotland County, wherein I developed an interest in lifelong learning. I am a proud member of the class of 1987 from Scotland High School. Go Scots.
Go Scots.
After graduating, I attended Morehouse College and transferred to Pembroke State University, where I completed a BA in political science, and I completed a MA in clinical mental health counseling from Webster University. Why should you vote for me? And as you heard Mr. English say that there are 4 candidates and there are 3 seats. So with that in mind, I want you to remember that I am committed to my community, committed to education, and committed to advocacy for all children and parents and staff of the school district. I have leadership experience that I've gained from my service in our community in various capacities, to include having the privilege of serving on several boards, to include the Scotland County Church Community Services Board, Scotland Tourism and Development Authority Board, the Scotland County NAACP, Southeastern Community Action Partnership. I am a lifelong learner and recognize the values of receiving an education. Having spent more than 20 years in public service, where I worked for the U.S. Department of Labor and received the U.S. Secretary of Labor's Special Achievement Award. I had the pleasure of working for the U.S. House of Representatives
You're fine. You have 30 more seconds.
and Richmond Community College, coordinating the Jobs Now program. I recognize the need for advocacy, and as a lead therapist with an intensive in-home team, I work with families and children to address behavioral health needs to prevent out-of-home placement. Children sometimes need a voice so that they can be heard. If elected, I will bring this commitment to serve and work with the current board leadership and staff to continue working toward the common goal. Again, my name is Tony Spalding, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spalding. Question from JJ from the Laurinburg Exchange.
What are your opinions about virtual learning, and how do you think it will be used in the future?
I look at virtual learning as being the next step, whether we want to accept it or not. Those folks that are with my generation understand that it's a step out into the wild. However, with this new generation, you know, you can take your children or your grandchildren and they'll say, Papa, just let me handle it. But you learn that in the 21st century, you've got to come to grips that it's not going anywhere. You know, the typewriter you said you were going to type for years and years? Now you find it and it become an antique or something you can sell. But remote learning is here to stay. And I'm going to say in one form or another, for example, now we got really, it's not all bad because we can also use it instead of having snow days, it can become a remote learning day. It's all in how you use what you have. So a lot of time folks look at it as being detrimental, but it is also good for folks. And then instead of us trying to make up days, it's something already built in. And I think when you look at remote learning, you have to look at it as an advantage. How can we make it work? I think the issue now becomes training our staff and making sure they feel comfortable, because I can promise you our children and the youth are comfortable with remote learning. It's that if you don't believe it, you get them get to the house and look at them with their games. They don't have a problem. But I just want to encourage us that remote learning is a partner if we make it our partner and not an enemy to mankind. And that's the advancement in technology. And I really believe remote learning is here to stay in one form or another. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm proud to be a part of the Scotland County family. And as a frontline worker, I have the privilege of working with many school districts now as we serve families in my current role as a therapist. And I must say, as said earlier, we have been ahead of the curve with having provided laptops and Chromebooks for student learning. Remote learning is not just here to stay. It provides an additional opportunity and platform to advance our children. Now, it has also allowed us to make adjustments and adaptations in this very fluid environment that we find ourselves in, changing every day, with our biggest concern being how do we educate safely the children of Scotland County. Virtual has provided us that option. And I see we just got to find a way to continue working as the board has done to find some solutions to bridge the gaps of access. And this is not a new dilemma, it's ongoing. And as we expand broadband and come up with solutions, safety still has to be our primary thrust in today's time with COVID as a major thrust.
With all due respect to Mr. Spalding, I know you're not a current member of the board, but I'll ask this question anyway as if you were. We asked Dr. Banks and Mr. Bennett about the return on October the 19th. The board at the last COW meeting decided by a 4-3 vote to return with a hybrid program. Now, I failed to mention, and I'm sorry, that there was a stipulation in there that parents who chose to have their children to stay at home could do so. However, teachers You know, they really don't have that option. I don't think. I know it was said that the principals would be working with those teachers if they could at all possible or anything. The bottom line, do you still think today we're ready to go back October 19th?
I think we're at that point, and I think your point was well taken there, Dave. Surveys were given out, and it provided parents with that opportunity to decide for their children. And the results now that are back talking about how many parents are actually saying that I'll allow mine to go back and those that I will not, it was, as of yesterday, it was probably about 53% that said that they were ready for their children to come back. Now, are we the one to judge why they want them to come back? No, because some want them to come back because they want a babysitter. Some want them to come back because they can allow themselves to get back to work. So I think every family has to make that decision for themselves. And if you opt to come, straightforward, if you opt to come, you and I both realize, all of us realize the virus is still around. So that is a chance that you take. But you do have the option of remaining remote. And I think that's a family decision. And finally, with that first 9 weeks, you notice the board said no. We think at this point we need to just stop. And really, my mindset was, let's stop and see how this thing's going. And I think personally, you have to decide for your own family what's in your best interest. And yes, for us to close down now and say everybody close, I think you still have to say, let's give them a chance. But there are protocols in place that says if these clusters happen in our area, then you're responsible then to say, we need to shut this part down or shut the school down or shut the entire system down. So there are choices that are made, and there are some that the school board would have to make. And you know, just like anything else, when you make some decisions, everybody is not going to be happy. But somebody has to make those decisions. And so that's the same thing I say with the legislatures, the commissioners, tough decisions. And it's easy to make them sitting at home looking at it on Facebook. But it's a different thing when you're having to deal with it and make that decision whether it's nay or yay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Tom?
Well, I don't have anything to add that is different. As he said, it's fluid and it does remain the option of each family. And as Americans, we are empowered to make informed choices once we get information that could change our thinking. We keep our eyes on the pulse of things going on around us. Other districts have entered into returning to school and have had to back up and have had to close. So I think we just need to be respectful of family choice, allow families that right to make a decision that's best for them. Thank you.
What can be done to keep students from falling behind, as far as with parents or at school?
What can be done to keep students from falling behind? Well, I believe in community. We have a lot of options available. I believe the school district is currently trying to serve students who don't have access to internet, and please correct me if I'm wrong, by making sure that information is downloaded and provided on flash drives for those students who don't have access to the internet. So that's an example of a way that information, assignments, and data can be saved. Of course, it could be printed in hard copy and sent home or scanned and emailed. So you have some options. Another option would be to have Khan Academy accessible and made available, because they've been available to tutor and assist students for more than a decade, if not longer, before we were in this environment. I think getting information out about the resources that are available would be really helpful in our community, whether it's in print form, by word of mouth, and just allow the community. We're blessed to have RCC and St. Andrews that serve as hubs that can assist. So we could be creative and partner with those institutions that can provide tutorial assistance. Now, I just gave a solution, so I don't have a patent on that. But we just got to be creative. You know, there's help available if we would just think outside the box. And I do know that Scotland County Board of Education has partnered. I've been a part of establishing agreements with the school district in a previous role I've served. So we just got to build on that and get that information out to our communities. Thank you.
When you talk about students falling behind, I think the first statement I'm going to make is that nothing takes the place of in-person learning. Nothing. However, we didn't make this decision. This is something that came to us, and we have to deal with it. Now, we're going to decide if we're going to sit and complain or do the best we can with what we have. What we do have, we have a staff that is committed to getting it done. And I say to the staff that the staff must keep that communication, and I say this at board meetings, staff must keep that communication with parents. And I tell parents on our board meeting, if you don't hear from the school, you call them. Call that person. I'm not hearing from my teacher. And I'm a granddaddy, and do you think I do that? Yes, I do. Now, on the flip side of that, there are parents that also have another responsibility. It is what it is. It's not like we've done it in the past. So, yes, parents have to come home and ask Aiden, what did you do in that math class today? Now, a typical answer for a middle school kid is nothing. You show me, what did you do in that math class? And parents have to become a little more active and ask those questions. And I generally tell them, if you say nothing, then you could have stayed off today. Hold them responsible. And the other part is, Mr. Spalding shared that part about flash drives. Any parent, there's some people that lives out in some areas that are not getting good reception. But I promise you, the district has in place those packets you can pick up, the flash drives. So if you are committed to getting it, we've purchased an additional 450 hotspots. And you wait till the state's going to give us, well, we just got 100 in last week, but the state is going to give us 350 more. We just have to do what we have to. Can't make it go away. We got to deal with this thing until it passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. We have any more questions from the press, media? Well, that will conclude our program. I would like to thank all of our candidates who have been with us tonight. Thank you for your willingness to serve our community, and good luck to every one of you. I want to thank WLNC 95 Point Radio, the Laurinburg Exchange, the Junior Service League for being our timekeepers, and also, again, Scotland County Board of Elections, Dale Parker. Early voting begins October 15th, and I think that's at the Poll Center 1, I believe, which is the annex building across from the courthouse. And again, good luck, everybody. Be safe. Have a good night.
Thank you.